My name is Kessa Velaroon, and I was the wavekeeper of the Calyx Tide, which means I was the one who sent our voice into the dark and listened for what came back. For 9 days, nothing came back. We were a water hauler, not a warship. 304 of my people sealed inside a hull built to carry brine and breeding stock between worlds, not to survive a debris strike. The strike came on the edge of the Hollow Reach, a wreck field thick with the bones of older wars, where 3 different governing bodies claimed jurisdiction, and none of them claimed responsibility. Our outer hull cracked along the second tank ring. We sealed what we could. The water that kept us breathing began, slowly and very precisely, to run out. I sent the first call within the hour. 41 words, compressed, repeating, on every channel I had clearance to use, and several I did not. I gave our position, our condition, our numbers. I gave the names of the breeding elders first, because if anyone was going to answer, I wanted them to know exactly who they would be saving. No one answered. I want to be precise about what silence sounds like from inside a dying hull, because it is not the absence of sound. The Calyx Tide groaned at the seams where the breach had been welded shut in haste, a low structural complaint that never fully stopped. Water moved against the inner bulkheads in slow, wrong currents, sloshing toward leaks our engineers hadn't found yet. 2 decks below me, the breeding elders sang the old counting songs to keep the youngest calm, the same songs my own mother had sung to me on a transport like this one, decades before. None of that is silence. Silence was only the relay panel, patient and empty, refusing to give me back a voice that wasn't my own. I sent it again 4 hours later, and again after that. By the 3rd day I had stopped varying the wording and simply let the same 41 words loop, because changing it felt like admitting the first version hadn't been good enough, and I needed to believe it had been good enough. The relay panel in my chamber kept its own count, a small green number in the corner that I made myself watch. 5, 6, 7. The compact vessels in the Reach, and there were compact vessels in the Reach. I confirmed it twice on passive scan. Altered course around us. Not toward us. Around us. I watched one of them on the scope for the better part of an hour. A cruiser running slow through the debris, its lights bright enough that I knew its crew could see our hull just as clearly as I saw them. It adjusted heading 4 degrees south of a direct intercept, and held that new course until it passed out of range. 4 degrees is not an accident. 4 degrees is a decision. I learned later that the Hollow Reach's contested status meant any rescue inside it could be read as a territorial claim, and no captain wanted to start a border argument over 300 water breathers who weren't yet seated at any council table. We were inconvenient. We were technically nobodies. By the 8th call, 2 of the breeding elders had died, not from violence. Their bodies simply could not hold the salinity drop any longer, and there is no dignity in describing exactly how that happens, so I won't. I logged their names anyway, in the same file as the distress calls, because I did not know where else to put them. The 9th call I almost didn't send. I remember sitting with my hand over the transmit plate, my gills working too hard in air that was thinning toward poison, thinking that a 10th failure would be worse than no call at all, that I would rather stop counting than watch the number climb past what I could carry. I sent it anyway. I sent the 10th, the 11th, the 12th. The 12th call cut off mid-transmission. Our antenna array, what was left of it, finally gave out 3 words into the loop. I did not know that at the time. I only knew the green number had stopped climbing, because there was nothing left to climb with. I am told, because I did not witness this part myself, that a human salvage tender called the Greythorn was running a contracted debris survey 11 hours out from the Hollow Reach, cataloging wreckage for an insurance consortium that wanted to know what was salvageable and what wasn't. Routine work. Tedious work, the kind given to small ships with small crews and no particular reputation. Their signals officer, a man named Cohen Astry, picked up the fragment of our 12th call on a frequency the survey contract hadn't asked him to monitor, because he kept it open out of habit. 3 words, then silence, then the carrier wave dying. He told me afterward that the 3 words were enough, not because of what they said, but because of how many times the system logged the same fragment trying and failing to complete. 11 prior attempts, buried in the noise, that no scanner sweep had been tuned to catch until his was. He showed his captain the count, 11 failed completions, and a 12th that almost made it. The captain, a quiet woman named Reyes, who had spent 18 years moving cargo through worse places than the Hollow Reach, changed course, without filing the amendment her contract required. One ship. Not a fleet, not an escort, not the kind of arrival that announces itself with engine glow and formation lights. The Greythorn came in alone, threading the wreck field on a heading her own navigation flagged as inadvisable, because the fastest path to us ran straight through debris no insurance underwriter would have approved. I felt them before I saw them. The hull knock pattern against our outer plating, 3 strikes and a pause, the old maritime signal for "we hear you," repeated until I understood it wasn't random. Then their boarding seal met our airlock, and I remember the sound of it more than the sight. A long mechanical sigh, as 2 completely different kinds of air learned to agree with each other. The humans who came through wore suits built for our atmosphere, which meant someone aboard that small ship had taken the time, in transit, to reconfigure gear meant for vacuum work into something that could survive our brine-thick air. Reyes came through second, after her engineer, and she did not say anything grand. She crouched by the first of my people she reached, an elder named Thessa Wren, barely conscious, and said, in the flat, unhurried voice of someone who had done difficult things many times before, "We've got you. Just breathe what we're giving you." It was not a large rescue, measured against what some of the stories say humanity is capable of. 1 tender, a crew of 9, no battle group waiting in reserve, no grain ships, no relief convoy following at a respectful distance. What they had was a hold rated for cargo, hastily flooded to something close to our home salinity using reserves meant for ballast, and enough patience to make 4 trips through a debris field that should have torn their hull twice. The engineer, a broad-shouldered woman who never told me her name, recalculated the flooding ratio twice by hand, because the ship's own systems had no profile loaded for a species that breathed water instead of carrying it. She got it close enough on the second try that none of us blistered. We lost 1 more before the transfer finished, an infant keeper named Doss, whose body had simply given out an hour too soon. I will not pretend the ending was clean. 299 of us came aboard the Greythorn alive. 5 did not survive to see it. I carry both numbers, and I have stopped trying to let one erase the other. What I remember most is not the rescue itself, but the log Astri showed me afterward, the one with the count still visible. 12 failed attempts, logged and time-stamped, sitting in a file no one outside that small ship had ever been required to open. He had kept it open anyway. That is the whole of it, I think. Not a fleet arriving to answer prayers, not monsters sent to terrify a galaxy that had wronged us. Just a tired survey ship with a signals officer who didn't close a channel he didn't have to keep open, and a captain who didn't wait for permission to be the 13th call's answer. I asked Reyes, 3 days clear of the Reach, once the worst of the grief had settled into something I could carry, why she'd changed course without authorization. She thought about it longer than I expected. Because somebody was still counting, she said. And I didn't want the number to stop on us. We are not compact citizens. No treaty obligated the Greythorn to slow down, let alone to bleed her own ballast reserves dry, keeping us alive in a hold never built for it. I do not know what humanity asks of itself, as a rule, in moments like that one. I only know what one small ship gave, when every larger one had already gone around us. I asked her, too, what would happen to the abandoned survey contract, the heading she'd changed without filing the required amendment. She shrugged the way her engineer had, small, practical, already finished with the question. "They'll dock my pay," she said. Wasn't really in question. I have logged that too. Not in the distress file, but in a new one, the first entry that didn't begin with a number climbing toward failure. It begins instead with her name,